In today's show, we discuss why do countries go off the rails and can anything be done to actually stop it?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
Yeah, thanks.
What? Oh, boy. That threw me completely.
You've got to go back and look at your face.
Oh, dear. Oh,
You've got to
dear,
go
dear,
back and
dear.
look at your face. That was hilarious. Where will the real Tayo Boya please step forward?
What's going on here? This is not the Tayo I'm familiar with. He totally threw me. Anyway, moving on with the show. I want to sort of actually, before we carry on with our subject, actually, Tayo, I've had a couple of our listeners out there say their new listeners got in touch privately, which is interesting. I don't know how they got my details, but they did. And they said, we like your show and we like the intro where it says talk shows, going where no one else dares to tread. And then I'm listening and I'm hearing you and your colleague Tayo laughing your heads off in the first minutes or so. I did try and explain to say that we do lighten the mood because of our intro. That's the whole point. It's to make it fun and pleasurable. And I think he sort of understood that in the end. But yes, why Tayo and I go through this is because our topics tend to be quite heavy at times. So we lighten it up in the beginning, and we appreciate the feedback for sure. It's
Very good of him
definitely valuable feedback. But obviously, our listeners who've been listening for a while, they know that Tayo and I play out this little ditty at the beginning of each show just to lighten the mood. But anyway,
I'd like to say to whoever wrote in and made that comment. First of all, thank you for making the comment. Thank you for taking the time to get in touch with us. Secondly, please don't worry about it. As soon as that initial levity disappears, my usual sour self will appear again, and you'll have plenty of angst and depressive themes from me. Don't worry about it. Just hang
normal
around.
service will be resumed.
Precisely.
Yes, indeed.
What you gonna do to me? There you go. No, you're spoiling. You're laughing now.
Anyway, let's move on with the actual topic of today. This is one that you've come up with, and it's why do some countries go off the rails and can anything be done to actually stop it? Now, as it was one of yours, I'm going to ask you to kick off and why you came up with this topic and what it is about other countries meeting this criteria that winds you up.
Well, if you recall, my initial proposal was why has Canada gone off the rails?
Indeed.
And you wanted to internationalize it more than just the one country, Canada.
Absolutely,
and
I did.
The reason that I came up with this idea, well, the topic, because it's a genuine question: what is going on in Canada?
Okay.
They are nominally a Western liberal democracy, so you'd expect them to have what classically we would understand as Western liberal mindset and politics. But increasingly, it seems to me as if Canada is becoming very much a dictatorship. I don't know what the proper political science term is.
Where there's nanny state, where nanny knows best.
That is not a political scientific term. No, political science would some kind of crassy. It was some kind of crassy, and the crassy I'm looking for is a form of political authoritarianism. Oh, I can't even pronounce it now.
Authority.
Yes,
Ism.
authoritarianism, a kind
Okay.
of authoritarianism where the masses, if you like, the masses themselves become the dictatorship. So it's not a dictatorship of one person. It's not
Or
a
government itself.
yes, but a mindset which means that you're not able to speak your mind freely, you're not able to do things freely because you are afraid of the majority of the people around you, and then it feeds into itself, so that I'm afraid of you, you're afraid of me. It could be that both of us individually actually have the same liberal thoughts, but we dare not speak it to one another because there'll be a third person who will report us, and everybody else who's afraid will have to side with that person, and we're talking ourselves into a trap.
Isn't this very similar to Germany in the Second World War, where the Nazi government at the time instilled in its population to grass up anyone that was talking negatively against the establishment. So the people themselves were self-regulating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been shown. It happened in Nazi Germany. It then a similar thing happened in communist Russia in the
Communist
50s and
states
60s. Yeah,
in the Warsaw Pact.
indeed.
The
They were
Warsaw Pact
all
countries.
afraid.
Yeah.
Exactly. They were afraid of speaking out. Everybody would whisper because if you said it too loudly, someone would hear, and it could be a brother, sister, uncle, aunt who could shop you to the authorities. And it happened
Mm.
many, many times. So you're now saying that Canada, in your opinion, is adopting a similar approach, but it isn't the government that's instigating it. It's
Precisely.
actually the people themselves. So that
Actually,
what is it? Mob rule? What's going on
yeah,
here?
exactly. So maybe that's what I'm looking for. The political scientific term, the political science, sorry, the political science term for mob rule. Rule of the mob,
But isn't
where
that a real democracy in a way? Because you've got a large group that are dictating how the country is governed. Is that not?
that is the idea of demos kratos, the people ruling. But demos kratos, if you recall from the Greek when it started off in Greece, was within its historical limits where women and slaves weren't allowed to vote. Understandably, I suppose.
No, that's not right. But go on.
Completely understandably from my point of view. I mean, first of all, we shouldn't have slaves, so I don't know, and if slaves could vote, what do you think they vote for? They vote for their freedom, so that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, let's not talk about why. It's just ordinary common sense, not that women vote.
I am against that, but okay, against your
Yes.
thinking there, but that's my view. Okay, moving on.
No. So what it was the free men would gather at the town square. So you see, they could actually gather because their populations were relatively small.
Indeed.
They could gather at the town square, listen to people speak, talk about it, contemplate it, be informed, and then make informed decisions. This is what people. This is where we fail to get it in our modern society. We don't. We depend on people to vote intelligently and informedly, but intelligent people are thin on the ground, and informed people are even less. What's the word I'm looking for? They're even fewer on the ground. Do you see? So basically, a bunch of morons have been asked to make intelligent decisions. Now that's not going to work, and it isn't.
Where's your
Working.
evidence for this? Come on, that's just
I just talk to people, Tony. I just get out of my little ivory tower, unlike you, and I just talk to people, and then I find, oh look, a moron, oh look, and then you just find yourself, oh, hang on, I'm surrounded by this morass, this drowning. I'm drowning in idiots just running around talking nonsense. You look at this big burly bearded fellow, and he's competing, and he's doing weights or whatever it is, what do you call it, lifting weights in the female category, and you think, well, how has this happened? What's going on here?
Okay,
So
that's we've drifted off the
it's not
topic.
drifting. This is what I'm trying to say. That people look at something, it's black, and then they're calling it white. It's the emperor's new clothes.
It
But
is,
in
but
real life,
it's almost like a bit of a phase until it adjusts correctly. It's going to swing too far a particular way, and then it'll adjust, and then it will come back on itself, and then it will get to a a proper middle ground, which then settles down and is acceptable to the majority. At the moment, it's trying to find its way, and it can go too far in one direction. So the majority of people have been silent. Now they don't like it, and so they'll start to speak up, and then that will readjust in a more measured approach, and things will then go back to normal. So the thing that you're referring to is competing in categories that are predominantly for women, and you're getting men in there claiming to be feeling feminine and then being allowed to compete because we didn't want to offend them. But now
no, that's
all,
not what I'm talking
but that's
about.
part of it, isn't it? Because now that's
No. You're
been
missing the point.
changed.
You're missing the point. You're missing the point. That is not that the our question today is, how did we get that way? How do societies get that way? That is what perplexed me. That how did we, from my youth, where to me, at any rate, growing up and until just a few years ago, I thought I understood society. I thought I was surrounded by reasonably intelligent people and were making reasonably intelligent decisions. But suddenly, we find ourselves staring at this naked emperor and saying, "Aren't his clothes wonderful?"
Yeah, but you're looking
so how did we
at
get?
it.
How did we get there?
Yeah, but you're looking at it from older eyes. We're not part of the youth of today. They're the next generation. If they want to accept that as the norm, they're the ones who are be working the jobs. They're the ones who are creating society. You and I are old men in comparison. We're has-beens. We're looking at the technology that's passing by, and we're fumbling to grasp it. Whereas the youth of today, they were born with it and they don't see any issue with it. Like this issue of people choosing their gender. Personally, I disagree with it, but that's my own viewpoint. But the majority of people at that younger age seem to have no problem with it. Although the authorities now, in the sporting sense, have now reined that back. All the different sporting bodies have now, the particular example you've given about the man competing in a female sport, that has now been sort of changed pretty much all across all sports. So they, like I've said, they give the example, we moved over one direction, we're feeling our way, didn't feel right because the majority of people complained, and so now it's readjusting itself and coming back where it might find a ground that can accommodate people who feel in that category. So it is what it is. It's adjustments because it's new. And you and I, well, we're old in comparison, let's be honest.
Well, I think you missed the point. You see, first of all, no, I'll take you up on one thing you said. You said that youngsters grew up with this and they're more accepted and they're finding their way. Strangely, I find that the secondary school students I teach are very much like us, like you and me, that they roll their eyes. Because I actually rolled my eye when I was covering a teacher. Someone said to me, "Oh, Mux, whatever her name was. I'll just create a name out of thin air. Mux Smith or whatever her name. Mux Smith lets us do it this way." And like what? So I thought it was her first name. And so that's an unusual, that's a bit unusual. Mux. No. That's how she identifies. She identifies as Mux. So what's a Mux?
What is that?
I think it's MX or something. I don't know.
Max.
non-binary or something. Who knows?
Oh,
So when they said something like, "Oh, non-binary or gender fluid or something," I rolled my eyes. And look, as a class, they rolled their eyes too. And these were, if I remember correctly, these were like year 8s, year 9s, which means they were 13, 14-year-olds. And they too rolled their eyes. I thought I was going to get done because, I thought, I'd be reported and I'd be thrown out of the school. They didn't. They didn't. So they were quite happy with it. That was their real position. And that's not the first time I have met that. I have met that.
so where's this
X number
driver
of
coming from then? Have we got a tiny minority dictating to the majority? Rather
Okay, have
than
you
what
heard of this?
we were touching on the mob rule, but that
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be what you're saying.
But
We're
like I
saying,
said, then you're afraid of me. I'm afraid of you, and then we're going along with it because
we're
cancel culture.
self-censoring. Yeah,
We're self-censoring.
yeah.
So I think, and the question that I would like us to address today in this episode is, how do we get that? How do we get that way? And is there anything we can do about it? All right. So let's move away from wokeism first. Well, I'll return to wokeism because there's a very interesting example of wokeism that just happened in the last few days, 4 or 5 days, maybe, whatever,
Okay.
which has to do with Doctor Who. But have you the new Doctor Who anniversary episode or show,
Okay.
film, whatever it was?
Right.
We'll come back to it. Totally woke, by the way. We'll come back to it. But this is going to be a slightly more controversial because I'm going now to turn our attention to, let's say, the Middle East.
Okay.
And theocracies. Now, I mean, there is one theocracy, isn't there? Iran is a theocracy.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to explain to our listeners not understanding that term?
Well, a theocracy is rule of government. This is a proper political science term. Not, what did you suggest?
No, I didn't say. I'm asking you to explain to our audience.
What did you say earlier? What was your idea of a political science term?
What?
You made, sorry?
What, my example?
Mob rule, yeah, mob rule.
Yeah, mob rule is a simple term, isn't it?
That's the political science, but it made me laugh. Anyway,
okay.
so yeah, theocracy is the rule of by religion, if you like, by religion itself, or by a religiously elected representative of, I suppose you'd say, a deity or God or something, so
which is the opposite of a secular.
Yeah, you can't get more opposite than being secular.
Yeah, indeed.
So Iran is a secular.
Not a secular.
It's a theocracy.
Yeah,
because the supreme leader is an ayatollah, which is an Islamic scholar.
Yep.
So that makes it a theocracy. Now, I think long-term viewers or listeners for our podcast listeners and viewers for our YouTube and video viewers will know that I am no friend of evolutionism or materialism. So I am, in a sense, a creationist. Okay, so no offense what I'm about to say, because I'm actually a creationist. But really, without being able to prove your particular flavor of the creator, you are actually selling a fairy tale. No matter how firmly some people believe in it, it boils down to being a fairy tale because you can't prove it. And for example, you have the people in the Vatican who believe one thing and you believe something else, and both of you can't be right. So someone is wasting their time. Maybe both of you are wasting their time, but at least one set of people is wasting its time, correct?
Only if they're following the religion to the letter, whereas the spirituality part of each of the faiths is correct.
No, it's not, because a Christian is only a genuine Christian according to Christian theology.
Yes.
If you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and that's one, and he died on the cross for your sins, and he was resurrected on the third day to redeem your sins. You have to believe that, or you're not a Christian. Any one of those three things you don't believe, you're not a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, Muslims believe that Muhammad was the final prophet, and he came, he was sent to correct the idea that Jesus was, because he's eternal, God.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the fundamental disagreement between Christianity and Islam. You cannot be both. It's impossible. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so one of those sets of people are incorrect. Probably or possibly both are incorrect. So you have a
Because you've now
country.
done a disservice to all the other faiths that are practiced
Well, I'm
around the
just trying to
planet.
give an example that when you think
It's
about
not
it,
comparing
at
them.
least one set is definitely wrong. Okay. Now, whether you're in the Vatican, I'm glad I brought up the Vatican accidentally. Whether you're in the Vatican or you're in Iran, we don't know which of you is wrong, but one of you has come up with a fairy tale, and your entire country is being run along those lines. How did that happen? How is it that no one said, hold on a second, this doesn't make any sense. There is no actual proof that you are right. And why should you become the leader? This is the thing. So how do countries, how does human society get itself into such a bind, into these problems when we lie, somebody somewhere tells a lie, and then it gains so much traction that the entire society is swayed by it. How do we stop it? This is what perplexed me about the Canadian case, and really, well, really threw me for a loop when I was thinking about it. That it's frustrating because you want to shake people and go, wake up, which is apparently what the woke people are trying to do, ironically, but it's not happening, and if it's frustrating, you got to watch yourself. I self-censor. I'm sure you do too.
Of course we do.
In the
But then,
unlike before, when
we
you could
have,
just say,
well, we have rules and we have laws where certain things we can and can't say.
what
Because
couldn't
at
you
the end
say
of
in
the
the
day,
80s or 90s? What couldn't you say? You could say what the hell you wanted.
well, I'm not so sure about that.
No, okay, so give me an example. What could you not say? In an office.
In an office,
Yeah.
could not say, but would it offend people?
What couldn't you say in an office in the 90s? You could say what the hell you wanted. Apart from call your boss an asshole. But what else? What couldn't you say? You could say anything. That was living in a democracy, and we used to make fun. Well, by the 90s, of course, I think the Soviet Union had fallen. But when I was growing up, we used to make fun of the Soviet Union and the people living. What is it making fun? We used to compare, not making fun. We used to compare ourselves to the people living in the Soviet Union and behind the Iron Curtain, as we used to say. We used to compare ourselves to them and say, weren't we lucky to be living in a free society?
Yeah.
We had the free press. We had freedom of speech. We could say pretty much what we wanted. And we felt that our system was better for it because we could challenge, we could, what is the expression? We could bring something to power. We could speak truth to power if we wanted to. Okay?
Okay.
Nowadays, can we even do that? Can we even protest in London without without ministers being sacked for making various suggestions and things and wanting the police to take a sturdy
Is
and
it because people in the past just got away with it, whereas now we have everything is online? You have a record of it, and it's easier to track you down. So the very tools that we use, which has enabled us to connect with bigger and bigger audiences, are the very things that have to keep us in check, because they are the things that will enable us to live or die by our words, because they're recorded, they're captured either on camera, on a video, on text. Everybody sees it. And then there's a lot of people out there who now have a voice, which before they didn't, because anyone can contribute to social media. In the past, we had gatekeepers to everything. You couldn't get to a newspaper or TV or radio without gatekeepers. Now that's all been removed. Anyone has got a platform which they can comment on. So more and more people who in the 80s and 90s may have been unhappy and silently suffered have now got the courage to speak up. And the majority, or seemingly the majority, that got away with talking the way they did, thought it was acceptable then, maybe has realized, hang on a minute, maybe it wasn't acceptable. These people who were quiet weren't quiet because they were just being quiet. They were offended. They were upset. They were hurt. So now, because that's become, people have emboldened because of social media, they're able to say more that they weren't able to say before. The majority of people are taking notice and curbing their language. They're putting boundaries in, which
Well,
may not have been there before.
well, that is a thesis that you're advancing. I would argue that it's wrong.
Okay.
That what we were doing in those days was practicing what we preached. That you could say what you wanted to say, and if people were offended, that was their blooming problem. Because I accept that
So you
everyone
would be
has. Hold
happy if
on,
someone shouted out racist comments in an office?
I would
They could
not.
say what they want.
I would not be happy, but I defend that person's right to shout out racist comments, and I'll tell you why.
Go on.
Because then you can sit down and have a discussion and show that his racist points of view or whatever I'm pretty sure I've done this a lot on social
Yeah,
media.
you have, yeah.
They think that they've got a points, and then you argue them down. You argue them to a standstill.
But that's if you've got people that are willing to converse.
Well,
that's not how it always works.
The thing about it is, we grew up at a time when, look, according to you, if what you're saying is true, we shouldn't have come through to a situation before the noughties, or by the noughties. We shouldn't have come to a situation where racism was largely frowned upon in the US. Without this woke cancel culture, anything, without that, we had already started reaching that level where it was frowned upon. I don't even think that until Obama, it was like wokeism. It seems to have been a reaction to Obama being elected president, because I don't remember, woke culture in the early 90s even. So think about it. We got there without censoring people. We got there just by talking it up and saying that doesn't make sense, and these are the reasons why. We believed in freedom of speech, and freedom of speech is either something you're afraid of, and then you become a fascist state, and you start moving towards that kind of situation that I'm saying that like Canada is moving towards, or you believe in freedom of speech and you believe that good arguments will always win, which they do, because they're good, because they are right, because they're true.
It's not that easy, unfortunately. It sounds simple, and it sounds. I know it's not simple.
No,
it's not
simple.
easy.
I'm not saying it's simple. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's effective.
It's a utopian idea, but some people don't want to listen.
It's not utopian. It's the oxygen of sun. Is it the oxygen of sunlight? That's a big metaphor right there. It is that sunlight and sunlight and oxygen kills germs. It is dark. It is the darkness, the moist darkness that foists the germs that destroy society, as it's doing now in woke societies.
You can't use that as woke as being the
communism.
The problem.
Your example of communism. All these societies that practice not being able to open your mouth.
The problem with a libertarian society, which is what we practice in the West,
which we used to practice.
Let me explain. The point of them is that people are liberal to do what they want, by and large. But then what happens is a few will go too far, and then the way that society is geared, those few are not penalized in any way because they've gone beyond the pale that everyone else conforms to. But the fact is that those rules are applying to everybody. So if the few did something that needed new rules to sort of police them, it doesn't just police those people who've broken those original boundaries, it polices everybody, so the boundaries become ever tighter. So that's the problem with a liberal society. The actual boundaries become ever tighter after a period of time, because more and more things are broken through the boundaries, and so those boundaries have to be pulled in, reined in, and our liberties are actually further eroded. It just is. Unless we
I
go
don't.
back and revisit a lot of those old ones and go, actually, they're all right now. You can, you know, relax on those. But that never happens. You just have more rules added to the pot. So the rules that are controlling people get ever greater rather than being reviewed and moved out. I mean, I'll give you an example. Part of what we were going to cover today was countries making stupid rules.
Mhm.
And how many laws that are created years and years ago still apply? There's loads, because it seems to be once laws are created and they're put in place, unless there's a real pressing reason to change them, they stay, they remain. So any new laws are added, so you get more to the pot. You don't then take away those old ones, you just leave them there. And this is part of what the problem is. So the boundary, as I keep saying, of rules gets ever tighter around the population. So our liberties are affected. And what you're talking about in terms of wokeness is just another element of that, where we are now curtailing what we say because it's a big group of people, whether it's a majority or not is still up for debate. They are not offended, but dislike some of the terminology that's been used. So the majority have to curb their language and self censor in order to keep harmony in the majority of the people.
You
Whether that's
see,
right or wrong is up for debate.
look, you said a few things there. First of all, we've yes, we've got it's not just because we live in a liberal democracy. It's because the modern politician has evolved into something he was never meant to be. Originally, parliamentarians assembled for a short period of time. I believe it was after the harvest. They would assemble in London and they'd sit in parliament and they'd pontificate on affairs of state, and they would judge the government of the day. And then after a few short weeks, they would close up their townhouses, because that's how townhouses sprung up, by the way, in London. Because your townhouse in London was the house you came to stay in when you were in London, attending parliament and looking after the business of state. And then at the end of the season, you would close your townhouse, cover it all up in dust covers and everything, and then go back to your country estate. You only were sitting in London, passing laws and so on and so forth for 6 weeks of the year, whatever it was. And then that has become that evolved over time to parliamentarians who sit in London all the time and pass laws all the time, non-stop, which is ridiculous. It was never meant to be like that. It was meant to be let the government get on with it and get out of the way. Get out of the way of the government. You come together at the time of national crisis or just routinely, like I said, once a year, whatever it is. That was always the idea. Now we've got professional politicians. Nobody was a professional politician. It's a ridiculous idea. How can you be a professional? What? So your business is to what? Is to beg for votes. That's your job. Your job isn't getting. You should have a proper job, which will enable you to know what really happens and what ordinary people live like, because you're one of them too. It's just that you have extra responsibilities. Now we've got a political class that is divorced from the ordinary experience of other people. So there is that, but I think that's a subject for another day that we probably ought to address another day in another talk. But this idea that people are offended and then we need to respond to their offense. My point of view is this: everyone has a right to be offended, and I accept that. Okay, you have a right to be offended. I have a right to be offended. But we go too far, and it's illogical and nonsensical and actually false when you say people have a right to not be offended. No, nobody has a right to not be offended. I don't have a right to not be offended. So if somebody shouts out a racist slur, I don't have a right to not be offended. I have a right to be offended. That's fine. And I can exercise my right to be offended and say, I don't agree with you. Or if he's smaller than me, because I'm a bit of a bully, I can beat the hell out of him. You see, if it's bigger than me, if it's or Mike Tyson, some sort of, or Tyson Fury, someone like that, you just go, yeah, well, you're a capital B, and then you jump into your car and you drive off. That's all you can. So reality, no one has a right to not be offended. But the people who so-called fight for the offended, you notice that
the
they
ones that have
themselves
got the big S on their chest.
they themselves seldom belong to the group that they're fighting
No,
for.
they never,
Right?
they hardly ever.
And
Indeed,
what does it boil down to? They gain power. They actually gain power. It's a power play.
is it a selfless act? They feel that they're doing something for.
It is certainly not a selfless. I
Someone
think
who's persecuted cannot defend themselves.
Virtue signaling is a word that they feel good. It makes them feel good. But I go further than that. You asked if there's a small cabal of people who are running the show, and I said I'll come back to it when we deal with Doctor Who. The Doctor Who. Now, for people who don't know, Doctor Who is a long-running TV show in the UK. I believe it's spread across the pond now. It is now in America.
Yeah. I think it is actually. Yeah.
I think it's quite a lot of Anglophone countries. And I don't remember what anniversary. Is it the 60th anniversary or
it could be
something?
It could be the 60th.
Because it started out in the 60s.
No, it is
it started out in the
60th.
60s.
Yeah.
So I believe it's the 60th anniversary. And they have this totally horribly woke film where David Tennant came back as the Doctor.
Okay. He was very good.
And then at some point in the film, someone says to him, we in the meantime, we've had a female Doctor.
Yeah.
Right. Jodie Foster, I believe her name was.
Yeah.
The actress.
She was all right.
Sorry?
She was okay as a Doctor.
How could she have been a Doctor?
What do you mean, how could she have been a Doctor?
Doctors were all male until she came, and then the gender swapped her. Because apparently females can't come up with their own characters. They have to steal male characters.
Okay.
Well, they should come up with their own characters then. Come up with their own. Why
Does it matter?
Yes, to me, it matters. It makes me annoyed. 007 was James Bond, was 007. When they made a new one, why did they have to bring a female character who became 007? Why couldn't she be 006 or 05 or whatever?
I know.
Anyway. So anyway, the David Tennant in this latest James Bond, James Bond,
Doctor Who.
In this latest Doctor Who, one of the characters says to him, "Oh, isn't it a shame that you're not a woman?" So what? Yeah, isn't it a shame? Because he used to be a woman, now he's back as a man. Isn't it a shame you're not a woman? Because then you'd be able to. So what the hell are you trying to say? And then this. I mean, there's so many woke points about the film. And you ask yourself, how people, no one's, actually, when I say no one's watching it, that's not quite true. I believe it got about 6 million views or something.
Okay. And this was a film or just an episode in a series?
No. It's a special.
A special, film length?
Probably.
Okay.
You don't think I'm going to watch it, do you?
Well, how can you make judgment if you've not watched it?
Simply because I've watched not outtakes,
Oh, come on. That's not enough. You don't get the context. How many films have you seen, watched the trailer, and then the film is rubbish? Because the trailer has nothing to do with it.
I'm not going to fall into one of your intellectual, this is the blah, blah, let's do it this way. No. I watched and comments, and the people I follow, the commenters, we commented on it, more than one, more than two. A lot of people have commented on it.
Having watched it.
But they watched it. I didn't watch it.
Okay. All right.
So I don't watch a lot of things now. Anyway, why is it on? Why did they make it? Why is the Marvels bomb? Why did Wish from Disney? Why does it bomb? Where are these people getting money from? It turns out that Doctor Who is actually a BBC product.
Okay.
Who funds the BBC?
Taxpayer.
We do. It's impervious. It is impervious to market forces. That's a problem.
They have got a independent body that does watch over them and ensures that they actually are meeting
I'm saying
their
the
audience.
Doctor Who. I'm saying Doctor
Okay.
Who is impervious to market forces. If it was a private company,
Yeah,
it would
that
lose
one
money.
product, yes.
And then they wouldn't be able to get away with stuff like
but
that.
The BBC, even though they do get chastised with certain productions if it's deemed
that's not my
unacceptable.
Point. That's not my point. My point is this is a hint to what is going on in countries like Canada, that the consequences of going against, if you like, of instituting these things that we're saying, that I'm saying anyway, don't make sense. The consequences are increasingly rarefied and of little impact on the people doing it. They don't suffer. That's the point I'm trying to make. Right. I'm struggling to make, that people don't suffer the consequences of saying stupid things, that they can get away with it. And that is the problem. That is why societies fall off the rails. They go off the rails because there are no consequences to saying stupid things.
But then you could look at societies where they, I mean, let's be honest, the governments in Western democracies are accountable to their populations.
How?
By Blair being voted in and out.
Tony Blair never. Well, that's a very, very
but they are. But let's look.
Very weak punishment.
No, let's look at authoritarian countries.
Yeah, there are big consequences there to getting it wrong. You got to get your head chopped off.
Well, but they can do what they like.
Yeah,
they're not accountable to whom? Who are they accountable to? They're not population.
Yeah, eventually the people. Like the Tsar. What happened to the Tsar? What happened to all sorts of?
That's not likely to happen in China, for instance, or in North Korea, where the people.
I think the people are quite happy with it, with President Xi. No matter what you read in the Guardian, it's got like 70 or 80% blooming approval rating.
How again do we confirm that those people haven't answered under duress? They're not in a free society to speak their mind either.
Well, so that's a circular argument. That's a circular argument.
But that means you can't answer it.
No, hold on. I can. I believe I can, because nobody in China is saying that they're not free to make a choice. That their own system is built upon what the person has done before. He doesn't go campaigning, but he rose through the party ranks due to competence, due to success.
You believe that 100%?
I do, 100%. That is their system, and I think it's a system that we should adopt over here. You can't.
They.
You start off as a youth leader.
President Xi has changed the rules to allow, because they had a fixed term. They actually agreed on a maximum length of time. But how come he, in his powerful position, was able to change that? And Putin has done the same in Russia, allowing them to remain in power indefinitely. So if that is something that allows them to progress through the ranks to the top based on their ability, how come these particular leaders I've just mentioned are not party to that? How come they still remain?
Because they're both riding on a wave of popular approval. And because they're both riding on a wave of popular approval, they can do
Are you expecting me to believe that they're in power because of approval, or is it because of fear? Remember, they're not in a democracy. They're not in a liberal society. So there are curbs on.
You read far too much. You read far too many Western media things without actually reading anybody else. The Chinese people are quite happy with it. When they weren't happy with it, they went rioting over this and that. They do have.
Rioting.
Yeah.
Show me the evidence of that those people are still alive and happy and living in a nice way.
Show you the evidence.
Yeah, you're telling me that they rebelled and went against. How many of them are still alive?
How do I know how many
Well,
of them are still
exactly.
alive?
So you're making
How do you know
claims
how many of
based
them
on
are dead?
no
How many of them
data.
are there? No, how many of them are dead based on your data? How many of them are dead? You tell me how
How
many
come
were
we don't
shot.
hear from them anymore? How come we don't hear anything from any of these
Because
dissidents?
because the Chinese government backed down.
They
Duh,
back down,
they
showing a
backed
sign
down.
of weakness. I don't think so.
Well, they did back down. This was about the factory workers in Ganju, G-O something Z-H-O-U. This is about the factory workers in Ganju. When we have these exchanges, we should come back in the following episode and prove what we're saying. And I'll be perfectly happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that
I'm hearing
you will
different
then have
stories
to.
from friends of mine who are Chinese
Mm,
who have now come over here,
mm,
who are telling the truth of what actually is going on over there because their
mm.
families still live there.
Well, I'm very suspicious of such people because I know that there's such people telling the same things about President Putin, who are also over here. These are the Russians. I don't know them personally, but I read some of the stuff that they write. But I follow enough Telegram channels where independent people say, "Look, this is a whole lot of baloney." I was going to use a different word. How did we get onto this subject? Anyway, I'm saying that that fundamentally we society, human society, we get ourselves into situations when there is no consequence for saying something stupid. Now, what is the difference between saying something stupid and saying something that the government of the day doesn't like? So if there are consequences for saying something the government of the day doesn't like, and you're saying something stupid, maybe the stupid things people say they're allowed to pass because that gives a facade of democracy and freedom of speech and everything. But anything that really rocks the government is stamped is heavily
Of
stamped
course,
upon.
because you're undermining what's going on there. And that
Well,
happened. Look at look what's
what if we don't
happening.
like it?
What's happening in Russia? How did what's his name? Putin's political foe. How has
Navalny,
he been? Yeah, Navalny.
Navalny.
Navalny. How has he ended up in prison for 27 years? What's he been charged with?
Well, American stooge. He's an American stooge. In
How
fact,
do you know that? That's a
well,
conspiracy.
well, that was what they took him to court for, and they proved it. He got
They
money
didn't
from.
prove it. He didn't even had a fair trial.
Well, you're saying all that, but I'm perfectly happy that he took money from Americans. He went to court. They showed where the money came from. He wound up. There
Uh-huh.
are people there are what I call the loyal opposition in Russia. They are the loyal. They're still in the Duma, which is their what you
Their
call it?
government, isn't it?
No, their parliament.
Parliament.
They're in the Duma. They are opposition, but they are loyal opposition, and they haven't taken money from foreigners. Color revolutions are started by the CIA and NGOs. So if you just sit around and you're just trying to be nice about it, you are going to have chaos in your country because they will disrupt your country. So
Now we're
President Putin,
talking something else here, but that's not
well,
the reason for the
well,
topic of our show.
well,
We can we
you brought Russia
okay.
into it. I was actually focusing more on Western democracies. That I
Okay,
was going to ask you.
let's touch on some of these rulings. I mean, you said that the countries are doing stupid things, and Canada was the one that you singled out in particular.
Yes,
But
can you imagine?
are there
Can you
laws
imagine
that are being made, or is it these are disagreements like civil disagreements?
2 weeks after you have slept with a woman in Canada, she can change her mind and accuse you of rape.
2 weeks.
2 weeks after you have slept with a woman, she can change her mind and accuse you of rape. How the heck does that make any sense? How do we make laws like this?
Well, thankfully, we haven't made them. I don't know why they've chosen to do that. But then you could also
President
say,
Trudeau shut down. Remember when
yeah, yeah,
the truckers,
yeah.
right? He shut down the bank accounts based on what charge? What was the what like you talking about Navalny? Hey, he didn't go to court. Oh, he wasn't this. Oh, he wasn't that. Well, were they taken to court?
No, that was
No.
terrible.
Well,
Terrible. That was pure fascism.
so So at the same time as they're saying that we're Western, this is what gets me, the hypocrisy of the whole thing. We're Western democracy, we're Western democracies.
You make a Western democracy with very tight boundaries. So is it a
Very,
democracy? You have to question it.
yeah, okay.
That's
So
all I'm saying.
all of us, all the West, we love what's the word I'm looking for? Trumpeting. That's good.
Yes,
Love
trumpeting
trumpeting
democracy. We're
our
not
freedom,
democracies anymore.
our freedom of press.
Yeah.
Where's RT? Where's Sputnik? Banned. Why? Why? I thought we had freedom of press.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
It is what it is. We're not in a democracy as we know it or what we believe it to be. We are in a suppressed democracy.
How did we get there?
We got there because of what I've said earlier. The boundaries are creeping in. So we have less and less freedom. So
how do we
it's
stop
not
it?
a democracy.
How do we roll it back? Because once it's too late, we will no longer be in democracies. We'll just be an out and night.
We're already past that point anyway.
Oh, you're saying that's very interesting. You now believe that we can't roll it back. So we now live in dictatorships.
Yeah, we pseudo dictatorships. Yeah.
When I say vote reform,
they will do nothing.
They will try. Look, if we don't, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy if we don't vote reform.
What do they stand for?
Whatever the hell it is, it isn't. They're not Labour.
Part of the establishment. Is that what you're going to say? You're going to use Donald Trump's terms. They're not part of the establishment.
I was going to put that in my mouth. I was going to say they're not legacy. They're not a legacy party.
Well, not Labour. The standard establishment. That's another word of describing that.
No, I just say legacy. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. Okay. They're not the legacy. They're not Labour. They're not conservative.
And what do they stand for that make them different to everybody else?
Well, they stand
that
for
would return our democracy to how it was before.
For liberal values, for true freedom of speech. They want to roll back such things as cancel culture and that sort of thing. They're going to they're going to do something serious about illegal immigration. They're going to try to that's what they claim. They're going to lower taxes. They're going to not be all tax and spend kind of thing. Start paying off our huge debt, which nobody seems to be talking about. That's ridiculous.
I know.
Let
me give you some other daft country laws because I've got a few here, which will be a bit fun. Mm-hmm. Did you know it's illegal to chew gum in Singapore?
And I agree with it.
Okay. Yeah.
I hate people who snap their gum. Do you know what I mean by snap their gum?
Yeah.
That is
I know. Since 1992, and if you get caught, you're in trouble. You can be fined and go to jail.
Brazil is it Brazil? A Latin American country. Another Latin American country is also.
Well, anyway,
I think it's Brazil.
Okay. Going back to your favorite place, Canada. Did you know that in the liberal democracy of Canada, the radio stations must play at least 35% of their airtime? It must be Canadian artists on the airwaves. That's the law. So between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., 35% of the airtime must go to Canadian-only artists.
I can see what they're trying to do, but it does seem a bit heavy-handed.
Well, why would you need a law for that? But there's a law.
Well, apart from that, I'd ask why 35%, 30%, 40%. Why did someone say no? 35 is the right.
How is that measured? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. What is your objective standard? How did you come up with 35?
Ridiculous.
And why don't people just play what the hell they want to play? To be honest,
well,
but maybe they're defending their culture.
Possibly.
So that's understandable, I suppose. I mean, I don't think it's great, but I think it's understandable.
And did you know in Germany, another interesting law? Did you know it's illegal to run out of petrol or fuel on the Autobahn?
That sounds
illegal. So if
it's strictly forbidden.
So if you run out of fuel on the Autobahn, you are arrested and thrown in jail because it's your responsibility to ensure you fill up. So you
listen. There's a story that I heard. Now, someone running up to a train station, I think it was Berlin, and asking about how to get to his destination. Someone from the UK was asking about how to get to the destination, and the ticket officer said she said to him, you go to this place and then you catch this train, and then you take that. You get out of this station, then you catch this other train,
Hmm?
and then the guy was looking and said, "Oh, but that only gives me 3 minutes to make the change."
Yeah.
And she said, "Yes, yeah." And said, "Well, what if something happens?" Said, "Like what?" And he said, "Well, what if the other train is late?" And then she looked at him like, why would this other train be late?
Yeah.
You know something about this other train being late? Like very suspicious. Why? Why?
Why?
What? Why would
Yeah.
I don't get it. Why would the
Yeah.
train be late?
That's
So
an English term.
what?
Well, it'll be late because we're so used to our trains being late.
We're so used to it, but
I
other
know.
countries are like, sorry, I don't understand. Why would it be
Yeah.
late?
Why? Yeah.
So it's like, why would you drive on the autobahn without enough fuel? For a German, that's like, sorry, I can't process
I
that
know. I
information.
know.
So
Okay.
so far, all the ones you give me so far are sort of understandable.
Okay. Did you know that you can't wear Winnie the Pooh t-shirts in
Oh,
Poland?
this is not understandable. Okay,
You're
all
not
right, you got
allowed
me.
to wear Winnie the Pooh t-shirts
What's the
in
problem with Winnie
Poland.
the Pooh in Poland?
They banned it, playground schools, and they feel that it's a bit too risque
What?
for
Winnie the Pooh?
impressionable children. Yeah, exactly.
He hasn't got any bits.
No, that's part of it. They don't want the teddy bear, the bear, Winnie the Pooh in Poland. And you'd be arrested if you wore a
No,
Winnie
I'm
the
saying
Pooh
he hasn't got
t-shirt.
any bits.
Yeah,
What's
but he doesn't show,
offensive
but
about?
he's naked from the waist down. He's a bear though. I don't understand the logic. I'm just relaying this
Yes,
information. That does not make
by the way,
sense.
Poland, bears are naked from the
Yeah,
waist down.
exactly. And now I'm going to pick on the French.
Okay.
Did you know it's the law? The law. Our listeners will probably be baffled by this. The law in France is you must, on a beach, you must wear Speedos on a beach in France. You cannot wear loose fitting shorts or trunks. They must be tight fitting Speedos, including swimming pools and other public places. That's the law. And it's to do to do with the fact that they expect you're not to wear the clothes you'd wear walking around the streets on a beach, and you're not likely to walk around town in a speedo, so they know that you've put that on specifically for the beach, so it's hygienic. So you only have them on the beach, then you take them off and you wear normal clothes walking around all day. Whereas if you
Well,
wear loose fitting clothing, you could walk around all day and wear it on the beach and then go walking around again, which is unhealthy. And that's their viewpoint.
sorry, you said something and then go walking around again. You mean going to the water and then walk around
Yeah,
again?
dry and then walking around after you're wet with your shorts, which are loose fitting. Because shorts could go on a beach and you can go into town with shorts, but you wouldn't do it with speedos. So they're basically saying speedos.
How's it unhygienic?
I don't know who made they made the rule.
No, I'm just asking you how. So if it's how is it unhygienic? I don't understand how it's unhygienic.
I don't know why,
I
but
mean,
that's the rule
it's
they
salt
say.
water for a start. So,
Yeah, but
so
even so, they feel it's not appropriate. So you wear proper
that's
clothes to walk
okay.
around, and you
This
wear
one I
speedos.
don't understand Winnie the Pooh. I don't understand this one. Sorry, this doesn't make sense. This
I
is
mean,
weird.
okay, it's another example of a stupid one. This is in Scotland. Did you know it's illegal? Why this would happen? But it's a law. It's illegal to ride a cow whilst drunk in Scotland.
And then several. So there were so many cases of drunken people riding cows in
Well,
Scotland.
I rest my case. This was from 1872, and it hasn't been changed. You see?
Even then, were there? So
Well,
do you know
apparently.
this idea, this point you brought up about laws still being on the statute books?
Yeah.
How about when we create a law, we create how long it should run for until it's renewed?
Yeah, agreed. That
So
would make more sense.
if we don't renew it, it
It
just falls
becomes
off the
null and
statute.
void.
It just goes
Agreed.
null and void.
Agreed. There will be some exceptions to that, or they because now with the advent of technology, I mean, in the past it was all a manual process, so you could see it could be a challenge. Now, with the advent of technology, each law has a time frame.
Yeah.
so that it then gets reviewed every 5 years, for instance. Or if it gets reviewed sooner, then the clock resets. But
No, when you make the law, you decide how long it's for. You don't have
yeah,
to be every 5 years.
okay,
You can say, okay, this law will stay in place for 25 years.
yeah, or
Because you
whatever it may
reckon
be.
that after 25 years, do you know what? It probably won't be relevant any
Yeah,
longer.
that
That's it.
would make way more sense, would simplifies the whole system. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that takes money. It takes for
Well, they
the
can
legal
blow money
system.
on all sorts of stupid things. So I'm
Well,
pretty sure
it's
they can come up with
something
the
they
money.
should certainly consider. But I'm mindful of the time here. We've reached the top of the hour, so we really should consider summing up here. Unless you wanted to hear a couple more funny ones that I've
I
got.
don't
So
mind. That's quite, quite.
you can't blame Canada purely on the laws, because there are
Well,
countries.
Canada's examples that I gave are far more injurious to the body politic. I mean, they're really serious. So they're not funny, silly laws like you can't run out of fuel on an autobahn.
Yeah,
I mean, when you start talking about putting people in prison because somebody has been accused of rape 2 weeks after it
see,
was
that's
probably
crazy.
consensual sex, I mean, that's ridiculous. And then obviously you're infantilizing women anyway, because the other one is it's really unsafe in Canada. Oh, yeah. The other one is in Canada, video evidence that because okay, let me very quick explanation. When this law first came out, men started asking women to say on camera that it was okay what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And then even the video evidence became null and void.
Why?
Well, they said because she was under social duress or whatever it was.
What?
So it doesn't count.
See, so what? People have no longer any personal responsibility for anything.
So women basically can't give consent. That was the
Yeah,
point of view of
they
the
can't give consent.
defense lawyer, that women can't give consent. Can't give consent. So where are we left? What are we left with? Anyway, you were going to say
That's
something.
undermining women for pretty much. But anyway, okay, very quickly. Did you know it's illegal to wear any camouflage in the Caribbean?
And in Nigeria.
Yeah,
No,
it
Andy, I'm
has to
telling you.
be. It has to be by military personnel only.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can't wear it as casual
Yeah,
clothes,
I got into
etc.
trouble. I actually got into, I know it's not like that in Nigeria because I got into trouble for it.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
said, "Are
you're
you a
not allowed to
soldier?"
wear it.
I said, "No." So
No.
why are you doing wearing
Yeah,
those
why
things?
are you wearing that? Yeah, that's what happens. You're not allowed. You can be arrested.
Yeah, I know.
And did you know? I can't miss out the US. Did you know if you register as married in North Carolina, the hotel that if you say you're in a hotel and you registered as married, then you are married
You are married.
in North Carolina.
Wouldn't that make you? Can't that be create a situation where you've just committed bigamy?
Yeah, it could be, and they'll be in trouble. It's common law marriage, so yeah, if you're already married, then that could get
You're
you
just
really in
having a bit of
trouble.
nookie somewhere, and then you
Yeah,
just
you can't say you're married. You've got to say,
right.
"Oh, we're having nookie."
Huh.
So you can't go in because a lot of people do that. So we're a married couple going into a hotel, not frowned upon. Because if you say that you're two single people, they may not let you in at all. So you have to say that you're married. However, if you do,
Whoa. What right do they have to stop you as two single people if you're paying for the room?
just Christian values.
That's weird. Well,
Why?
it's their hotel, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
We
need
can
to
they
wrap
stop?
up here,
Can
but
they
go on
stop?
quick.
Can they stop gay couples and lesbian couples from going
They
there?
have already. There's been things where the government have got involved because certain places have refused to entertain same-sex couples. So yeah, but they've got in
Well, what
trouble
about
for it.
interracial then? What about interracial
Well,
couples?
that could happen too. I suspect that hasn't made the news, but I dare say that would probably happen in some southern states that may not be keen on that. Yeah.
Interesting. Yes. Well,
Anyway, unfortunately, unless you want to sum up very quickly, anything to sum up?
I don't think we solved anything. It's basically you took a very unlike you took a very pessimistic view that it is what it is and we're all doomed.
Didn't say it in
Well, that's what you
You're
said.
twisting my.
No, that's the impression I got from you. That hey, it's too late. We're all doomed.
No, I think we just have to suck it up and just be done with it
There
because
you go. That's
society is.
not like a good old optimistic Tony at all. So
Indeed, we could talk at length of this, but unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show. for another week.